they doubt the kid. I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, to hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets. Cause we know who we are, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here and stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no else, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
Welcome to a Friday show. Oh man, we're gonna get into the weeds today, and I can't wait. We're gonna get into stuff that I told you I just couldn't wait to hear the arguments for, and that is the Halligan appointment. How are they gonna try to dismiss the case with Comey and James over Halligan specifically? We know about the motions to dismiss it because of the vindictive prosecution, the vindictive, unconstitutional nature with which they were brought, and the executive branch's, purview over these being brought specifically. Their pressure, their directive, their order, the administration's orders, Trump's orders to get these cases going, and why. Obviously, that's one thing. But Halligan herself, that was the other thing I said. I can't wait till they formulate their defense and their argument on why Halligan's appointment unconstitutional, why these cases should be thrown out because of her involvement. And we are going to get into it. I do want to mention on the top, we talked about Venezuela quite a bit. And we talked about how the U.S. was poised for an attack. And we thought 2 weekends ago, I thought it was going to be that weekend. But something hit the pause button on that. Not sure why. We're going to get reporting on why. I'm sure at some point that extra 2 weeks was taken. And it hasn't started yet. But Hegseth has officially announced Operation Southern Spear. Venezuela is in the crosshairs. Does this have anything to do with the timing of the discharge petition in the House? Obviously, I think it would be fair for you to assume possibly, yeah, they got to fill the headlines with something else, and it's got to be something big. It's got to be something big to push us off this Epstein thing, especially in the face of the 20,000 emails released by the Republicans in the Oversight Committee. And we got into those emails. And as more and more excerpts are coming out, because, it's so big, they were hoping to inundate you, the American public, overwhelm you with 20,000 emails. So you couldn't really see the forest through the trees, just too much. But people are there doing that work for you. People are disseminating these emails, and they're pulling out some of the juicier bits. You can check out some of the stuff that has been highlighted over the last 24 hours. It is salacious, to say the least. It is not good for Don. It's not good for Ghislaine. And then you've got the ancillary players like Summers and Barack and Wolf and all these other people that were corresponding with Epstein ad nauseum. It's interesting. Is it so interesting that you have to start a war to push it out of the headlines? Possibly. And Don is going on, he is going on rants. He is not pleased with the attention it's getting once again. He's not pleased. Now that this is from Truth Social, of course. Now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures, I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase, and many other people at its end institutions, to determine what's going. This is all one sentence, by the way. To determine what was going on with them and him. New sentence. This is another Russia scam, with all arrows pointing to the Democrats. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein and on his Epstein Island. Stay tuned. Okay. Well, I read what he and Larry Summers were talking about. He was getting dating advice. And I read what Rumi and Barrick and Wolf were talking about. And Bannon. And a lot of what they were talking about was you, Don. Was you. You want to mention J.P. Morgan, Chase, and Summers and all that. You want to mention all these people. You didn't mention yourself, Don. You were a topic of discussion quite a bit in those emails. Quite a bit. So he has great reason to want to push this out of the forefront. Get it out of our minds. Think about, war with Venezuela instead. I'll tell you what I'd like to think about. I'd like to think about this DOJ. And I'd like to think about these cases because we've been pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and it has blossomed. It has blossomed. First, I don't know how many of you guys are up on Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey. I don't know if you're familiar that she was fired. She was fired in July. She's fired from the Eastern District of Virginia. And she is suing. She is suing the Trump administration. She has been suing them, which is part of the point of this whole article. And this story that I'm giving you is great reporting by the New York Times. She has been suing them for quite a while over firing her without cause, and she's asking to be reinstated. She's suing the Trump administration. Now, she sued the Trump administration months ago. As a matter of fact, the administration and the Justice Department, they sat on it for 2 months without even responding to it. And yes, they have been hobbled by scores of resignations and firings and a morale crisis. But it really doesn't, excuse it. They just didn't respond. They just didn't respond. And it's starting to come out why. Why didn't they respond? Well, they didn't respond because they couldn't get anybody to take up the case. Sound familiar? It should, because that is a reoccurring theme with this Justice Department. All of their weaponized, baseless, evidence-less investigations, referrals, and grand jury indictments, they are obvious. They are obviously fraudulent to the people with integrity, the professionals in these departments, to the prosecutors, the U.S. attorneys. They see it for what it is. And if you are not a weaponized loyalist, you're not going to want any part of this stuff, obviously. The Manhattan prosecutor's attorney, I'm sorry, did I say she was fired from the Eastern District of Virginia? I'm sorry, she was fired from Manhattan. Sorry about that. She was fired from Manhattan. And that's important. That's an important detail. I apologize. It was the Siebert, Halligan, that's the Eastern District of Virginia, and we'll get to that. It's in my head. No, she was fired from the Manhattan, U.S. Attorney Manhattan. Okay. First, it would obviously go to Manhattan because that's the district. That's where it is. The Manhattan prosecutor's office said, no, we're not going to take it. We're not going to take it. And by the way, she is considered one of the top trial lawyers ever in that office. Outstanding performance review after outstanding performance review. That is important. They indicated they won't work on the case. The Brooklyn's prosecutor's office right next door, they would be a reasonable choice. They said, nope, we're not working on it either. And the federal programs branch of the Justice Department Civil Division, which normally would handle high-profile, litigation like this, like Miss Comey, they said, no, we're not going to either. We're not going to either. Now, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of New York in Albany filed a letter with the judges overseeing the Comey lawsuit saying the office had agreed to take the case. All right, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of New York in Albany. Does that sound familiar? That's in the weeds. But that's Mr. John Sarcone. Does that sound familiar? He's willing to take the case just north and a little west in Albany. He's the guy who has been handpicked by Pam Bondi to go after Letitia James's office. Remember, I told you the attack on Letitia James is twofold. One, they're going after Letitia James's loans in Virginia, saying that she had a secondary residence that she rented out. That's mortgage fraud. One of those darling little referrals from Bill Pulte. But two, Sarcone has been tasked to investigate Letitia James's office over the case, the successful case against Donald Trump and him overinflating the value of his assets, and that high-profile NRA case that's ongoing where she's going after the NRA. The Trump administration and the DOJ, they say that those cases are weaponized witch hunts that violate the president's civil rights, and they're investigating her office. And John Sarcone is the one investigating. He said, quote, while we're working diligently to familiarize ourselves with this matter and prepare the government's response, additional time is needed to draft an anticipated motion to dismiss. So he's going to try to dismiss this lawsuit. And he's saying, I need a little time. You see, it just got kicked over to me after 3 offices declined to take this case. I got tasked with it just now, and I'm a busy guy. I need more time. So Comey's lawyers responded and said, no problem. We'll give you till December 15th. No problem. But it is a problem. This whole scenario is a problem. She was fired by this Francie Hakes. She's an official in the DOJ. And it's not clear at all why she was fired. It's not clear. And there's been, Trump's administration and the DOJ's treatment of these employees has become a major problem. And really, it's Article 2 that they're leaning on, the president's executive power over firing anybody he wants. And for the most part, the Supreme Court's been kind of down with this. But, doesn't stop her from suing. Now, the judge overseeing this is Jesse M. Furman. And he has postponed hearings that may have been set on this. He's postponed them and given Pam Bondi and Sarcone till November 21st to respond and begin preparation. Comey's lawyers said, we'll wait till December 15th for the lawsuit to be heard and this to begin. Now, Sarcone is also a special case because Sarcone is along with 3 other U.S. attorneys who their legitimacy has been questioned, let's say, okay? Questioned about the maneuvers that the DOJ has been using to put people into these positions of power, which is something that is going to come up and be focal in the Halligan discussion. So remember this, they are directly tied. Sarcone, he may be deemed illegitimately in his position. Halligan could be viewed as illegitimately, unconstitutionally in her position. But the cases are going forward. For now, this one. For now. Now, the Manhattan, you want to know why they were able to kick the can. All these other offices were able to decline. One, the Manhattan Federal Prosecutor's Office recused itself because Miss Comey has deep connections there. She has deep connections there, okay? And her husband, he was also a lawyer in their civil division. He recently quit after her firing. His name was Lucas Issacharoff, and he quit. He quit in May when this whole thing began. So they're saying because of her ties there and how much we liked her and how good she was, we're not taking the case. Brooklyn, they said, yeah, she's got personal connections with us too. And she worked with us in cases, and she worked with us in the same FBI squads on high-ranking cases, and there's just too much connection here. We're not doing that. And the federal programs branch, they did not really comment on why they wouldn't take the case, but it's really weird. They had really no reason not to. She's only asking for back pay and reimbursement for her legal fees. And she is also asking, however, that the court finds that Trump has acted unconstitutionally. Maybe they don't want that smoke. But I'll tell you one thing that they absolutely don't want is they don't want a high-profile situation where all of their lawyers start declining to take the case. They're basically, in my opinion, protecting their lawyers. Because let's say the Brooklyn office decides to take the case, and their top 3 prosecutors say, we're not having any part of this, we'll just quit. Now the office looks terrible. And they've lost great talent. Unable to bring up the case, unable to get anybody to prosecute it. They're trying to avoid that PR nightmare, in my opinion. Pardon me. So, speaking to that, by the way, them protecting them, Bondi, early in Trump's administration, had issued a memo requiring attorneys to do whatever was asked of them by their supervisors or risk discipline and firing. They're trying to avoid all that. She told these offices, Your prosecutors are going to get in line with what we want, or we will fire them all. So all of these offices, they said, no, we don't want to take this case. We don't want our prosecutors quitting. We don't want a bunch of Eric Sieberts with integrity quitting our offices after years of great service. We don't want it. And we don't want them getting fired for any pushback. We don't want Pam Bondi coming after us. Retribution. Now, Ms. Comey, she is protected by the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. According to this law, all employees, federal employees, these prosecutors are entitled to fair and equitable treatment without regard to political affiliation, with proper regard for their privacy and constitutional rights. They are protected by law from firings like this. That's why this case, it could be bigger than her father's when it's all said and done. This is going to be a huge test of more of Trump's unitary authority. How far can this guy go? How much power does he have?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
All right, just a couple things to take away from Maureen's firing. A couple things I want just a bullet point for you when you think about this. And again, it's about Trump. It always is about Trump and his unitary authority, his authority to fire these people. Obviously, Lisa Cook firing at the Fed is a little different. And the Supreme Court's going to still have to weigh in on that. But this will extend the boundaries, and this will extend the boundaries of his power to these prosecutors. To these prosecutors specifically, these federal employees, these prosecutors, and their civil rights. I want you to remember, one, she had an impeccable record as a prosecutor. And she had more than a decade of service in the Southern District of New York, and she had consistently received outstanding performance reviews. She was promoted to leadership positions all the way up. No impediment to her rise. She was that good. And she handled some of the biggest cases we've seen out of there. Jeffrey Epstein, before he killed himself, she was investigating Epstein's sex trafficking. She had successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell. Successfully. And she was the one who prosecuted Sean Diddy Combs. Now, you can feel how you want to feel about what happened with that case and what was ultimately decided, what he was ultimately guilty of, and the charges that he avoided. You can feel how you want, but they did receive a partial conviction of Sean Diddy Combs. She was a part of a lot of huge, high-profile cases. And when you want to ask why was she fired? You can, on the surface, say, well, she's James Comey's son, right? That's what we're talking about here. Was she only fired because she was James Comey's daughter, rather? Did I say son? Daughter. Was that why she was fired? Because they didn't give her a reason. You could look to Miss Laura Loomer. It's funny how that name keeps popping up. In the sphere of Trump influence, Laura Loomer. She has positioned herself as the president's protector. And the social media is her battleground. And she called for Miss Comey to be fired as a national security risk because of her proximity to a criminal, her father. So I hate to say it, but you might not have to look any farther than that right there. Loomer wanted her out and convinced Don, man, there's some people that are right in Donnie's ear. Laura Loomer's one of them. Bill Pulte's another. We're going to get to that. Some people are in Donnie's ear and can take effect on how he thinks and what he wants. Laura Loomer's one of them. Is it that simple? Did Laura Loomer want her out so she's gone? That's crazy. I do think just her last name, honestly, was all it really took. And this was only a matter of time. Now, let's talk about Halligan. Oh, I love this. I love this action. When we talked about James Comey's case, we talked about Bill Pulte's referral from the FHFA and how unusual that was. And we talked about Eric Siebert all of a sudden stepping down as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And we talked about Lindsay Halligan's appointment. Now, what you got to remember is Siebert himself was an interim appointment. Okay? He was an interim appointment by Pam Bondi, referred to by President Trump. He wouldn't do the job. He refused to bring the charges against Comey. Either could not or would not. Doesn't matter. He had to go. For a few days, they appointed interim Maggie Mary Cleary. Few days. She said very little. And then she was fired, and they installed Halligan. And that is where we are, as far as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And the way that went down is a big problem. It's a big problem. And it's half of their argument to get her deemed unlawfully, unconstitutionally appointed to that office. Therefore, this case has a problem. The problem with the appointment, and one of their arguments is, traditionally, if the U.S. Attorney's office is vacant, the DOJ gets to appoint an interim. And we wait for that interim or somebody else to be confirmed by the Senate for the job. Could be the interim, or it could be somebody else who's waiting while the interim plays out. If the 120 days runs up, or if the DOJ fires the intern, a judge is supposed to appoint that position, and we await a Senate confirmation. That's not how this played out. Siebert was installed, then fired. Maggie Cleary was installed, then fired. And Lindsay Halligan was installed. The defense attorneys are saying that was unconstitutional. You are essentially taking the Senate confirmation process out of this. You're just stepping right over them. Don't need your input. You're not necessary here. And it completely makes the 120-day term, that guardrail, completely useless, meaningless. Meaningless. You can't just continue to fire and appoint into infinity. You take away the constitutionality of the appointment and the proper procedure, including the Senate confirmation. That's one of their arguments. She's not there legally. And that is the basis for their other argument. And that is the basis for their other argument. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. This is where it gets really, really interesting, especially in the Comey case. Lindsay Halligan had to bring the indictments to the grand jury all by her lonesome, all by her little self in both of these cases. No prosecutors there. No other prosecutors, no line prosecutors from the office were there. Why? Because they wouldn't do it. Two of them, they quit over the Letitia James indictment. Several others had quit previously over the Comey indictment. Prosecutors are quitting, one after another after another. They are either declining to take part and getting fired, or they are quitting before that could even happen. They refuse to take part in these indictments because they're fraudulent, baseless, and they know it. This is a big problem for you, Lindsay. And this is why I know you are not long for this position. Because she went and she did it by herself, that means there were no lawfully appointed prosecutors to sign off on the indictment. The defense attorneys are saying that makes it, you have to throw it out. You have to throw it out. What the DOJ is saying is that Pam Bondi reviewed everything in those grand jury trial, in the indictment, seeking of the indictment, all the transcriptions, everything was reviewed by Pam Bondi. And because Pam Bondi reviewed all of it and signed off on it, it can go forward. It's okay. It's okay because Pam Bondi okayed it after the fact. After the fact. Here's the problem with that. There are 2 hours of the transcription that are missing. Okay, 2 hours of what happened in that grand jury indictment are missing. Watch what their lawyers do, man. Their lawyers are so good. Lowell and this other lawyer, they are so good. They're saying, how could Pam Bondi have reviewed the case and greenlit it when there's 2 hours that are missing? How could she have reviewed that 2 hours? How could this review be lawful? How could she have possibly reviewed the entire grand jury indictment lawfully when 2 hours are missing? Now, if there was another lawyer there, just one other lawyer there to sign off on this that had been lawfully appointed to their position, this wouldn't be a problem. But because she brought it by herself, there is nobody else. And if Pam Bondi's review and green light of this is also unlawful, well, guess what? The indictments have to be thrown out. Oh, this is a big problem. Big problem. The DOJ's lawyers are saying, no, that 2 hours, the jury was deliberating. So the stenographer was off to lunch or something. She or he didn't have anything to record because the jury was deliberating. And the judge is saying, no, that's not how this works. You act like this is my first rodeo. This is not some common occurrence where we're missing 2 hours of jury deliberation. This is uncommon. These are a missing 2 hours of the evidence. Without them, Pam Bondi could never have reviewed and greenlit these indictments. That's a big problem, Lindsay. That's a giant problem. Giant problem. Now, the judge said, I'm going to make a decision by November. In the Comey case, Thanksgiving specifically, in the Comey case, this is really bad because of that pesky statute of limitations. Remember, Halligan rushed to get these indictments and had to do it by herself because there was no prosecutor she could get in time to avoid the statute of limitations expiring. That's why she was by herself for the Comey indictment. She was out of time. She couldn't find anybody to bring this with her. She was out of time, so she had to bring it by herself. If this gets thrown out, in Comey's case, it's done. All of the statute of limitations kicks in, and he is free and clear of these charges. Lindsay, you're going to get fired.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things, fighting for America one mic drop at a time.
One of the most interesting aspects of all of this is how this is all connected. How this is all connected. The DOJ is making misstep after misstep after misstep, and they are empowering people who are making missteps. And it is affecting their entire retribution campaign. It really is. It really is. Now, the Thursday's hearing with Comey lasted a little over an hour. Comey was in the courtroom with some family members. James did not attend. Remember, it's their lawyers, Comey's and James's lawyers, in tandem, making this argument to throw out the case because of Halligan. Okay, Halligan was in the court. She was there and did not speak to the judge. And by the way, if you're thinking about the Judge Curie, why that person and why not a judge in Virginia? Because they just assumed, look, it's going to pose a conflict for the judges in Virginia. We're just going to take them out of the process. Curie's based in South Carolina. Now, remember, the DOJ's lawyers are urging the judge to treat the questions about Halligan's appointment as at most a paperwork error and emphasize that Bondi has reviewed the grand jury materials and agreed to retroactively ratify Halligan's actions, even if her initial appointment is invalid. So they're blowing past the validity of Halligan in their argument, saying they might be onto something here, and going straight to the legitimacy of the indictment because of Bondi's ratification. The judge is stuck on these 2 hours missing, not letting it go. The judge said, it became obvious to me that the Attorney General could not have reviewed those portions of the transcript present by Miss Halligan. Okay? She said flat out she couldn't have. It's impossible. With the 2 hours missing, how could she possibly have in totality ratified the indictment? Impossible. Also, the defense attorneys, they're going after that. The statement that Pam Bondi ratifying the indictments retroactively is legal. They're saying that's not legal either. They're saying it's not possible for the Justice Department to retroactively empower a prosecutor who acted without legitimacy to secure an indictment. They said, Abby Lowell herself said that such a ruling, listen to this, she's really good. These arguments are really good. She said, such a ruling would mean that private citizens like Steve Bannon or Elon Musk could secure a grand jury indictment only to have it later blessed by the Justice Department. It's a great argument. Because if Halligan is invalid, that means she's the same as all the rest of us citizens walking around who also aren't U.S. attorneys. And if any one of us went and secured a grand jury indictment, and then the DOJ came behind and said, yeah, that's good, that it's legal, that's crazy. That's insanity. And the judge is open to it. The judge is here for it. And how these intertwine is really, really interesting. I mentioned to you Sarcone. His validity has been called into question. Okay? His validity has been called into question. That makes the Comey case interesting, the Maureen Comey case interesting. He's been picked to defend the DOJ in that lawsuit, defend the Trump administration and the people who are being sued in that lawsuit. He's been picked, and he might not be there with any validity. And there's others. There's others. In New Jersey, Alina Habba. Remember that name? In Nevada, Sigal Chattah. In LA, Bill Asaili. All of their appointments have come under criticism and question. The validity of them in question. And it's these appointments and it's these questions, and specifically the Alina Habba situation, the judge is acutely aware of. The judge made statements alluding to these other instances as she's considering Halligan's validity, right? She looked at the validity of these other people who are coming under question, especially Alina Habba, because a judge did rule in Habba's case. A federal judge, U.S. District Judge Matthew Braun, rejected a reading of the law in August and decided in deciding a challenge to the appointment of Alina Habba. The Justice Department insisted that the Attorney General is empowered to name as many interim appointees as necessary until the Senate confirms the president's nominee. That's what the DOJ is saying. He can do this as much as he wants. This judge said, no, that's not how it works. In the Alina Habba case, he noted the decision. He noted in his decision that the Justice Department's position would allow the president to appoint temporary picks indefinitely without ever seeking the Senate's advice or consent. And he deemed her invalid. And that's not good news for the DOJ's lawyers, that this Judge Curie is acutely aware of Braun's decision. Is she going to lean on it? Is she going to take it as set in stone? Is she going to follow it? Is she just going to say, as far as Halligan's appointment, it's invalid? You didn't follow the laws set out to appoint the interim and then the U.S. attorney permanently. You didn't follow the laws. That's one. It's nodding. It's a point to, she might throw it out on that. And as far as the other argument that the defense attorneys are making, or that the DOJ is making, which is, even if you deem Halligan invalid, the indictments are lawful because Pam Bondi retroactively ratified them. And the judge, even more definitively on that argument, has said, how could she possibly have ratified them if there's 2 hours missing? It's impossible. This does not look good. not look good for the DOJ's case. Doesn't look good at all. These now, again, if it doesn't go well in the Letitia James case, they can do it again. They can reload. They can send it to another office. They can give it to another lawyer. They can fire Halligan, install a new U.S. attorney, or try to. They can fire Halligan and then have a judge install a new U.S. attorney. We'll see if they get a radicalized sycophant this next time. See if it all plays out where she is invalid and they have to follow the proper course and can't just keep reinstalling U.S. attorneys in the Eastern District. That means a judge will. And Trump will have to select an appointee and wait for senatorial confirmation. And in that time, will this new judge-appointed interim just do the bidding of the administration? And as far as the Comey case goes, this will be dead in the water. This is why Halligan did this by herself, because of the statute of limitations. This is why she did it by herself. She couldn't get any lawyers in time to join her seeking this indictment. She's going to get fired. She's going to get fired. Period. Now, let's talk about Bill Pulte. Let's talk about Bill Pulte. Bill Pulte is the head of the FHFA. I've been talking about him a lot. I talked about all the agencies that have been weaponized and the heads of all these agencies that are Trump loyalists and willing to do the bidding of the administration, period, without questions asked. Legality, illegality, constitutionality, moral compass, scruples, none of that matters. None of it matters. Get it done, or we'll find somebody who will. Bill Pulte understands the assignment better than maybe anybody in this administration. He understands the assignment, and he is one of those people that has the ear of the president. Some consider Pulte an actual friend of Donald Trump. I told you yesterday, I don't think Donald Trump's capable of actually having a friend. But if we're talking about the closest thing to a friend that a psychopath, sociopath, narcissist can have, it would be Bill Pulte. Bill Pulte, he may be facing a little bit of pressure. They're trying to get out in front of it, but he may be facing a little bit of pressure. Okay, now he's the head of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. As the FHFA director, and he's the head of the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who backstop most of the mortgages in this country. You know who they are. You know who they are. Well, it looks like Bill Pulte, in an attempt to gain mortgage records, lending records on these targets of retribution, Comey, James, Cook, Schiff, in an attempt to get these people's records, he may have violated ethics rules and laws. Oh, yeah. Fannie Mae's Ethics Investigations Group had received internal complaints alleging senior officials had improperly directed staff to access the mortgage documents of James and others, according to some people within Fannie Mae. So what did Fannie Mae do with this internal complaint? They sent investigators to probe and find out who had made the orders and whether Pulte himself had the authority to seek the documents and whether or not they followed proper procedure. Okay? It turns out there was a person within Fannie Mae. Her name is Lauren Smith. She was the company's head of marketing, and she was acting on Pulte's behalf, according to internal sources. She's the one that unethically and illegally went and tried to obtain mortgage documents and loan documents for Pulte's referrals to the DOJ. Not only was what Lauren Smith did unethical, but Bill Pulte shouldn't be bringing these referrals. And that is what I told you months ago. Do you remember I talked about how odd it was for the head of the FHFA to be sending referrals to the DOJ? Oh man, this gets good. This gets good. And Pulte, he may be in the crosshairs. I told you Halligan's going to get fired. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Bill Pulte might get fired. He is screwing up in a number of areas all of a sudden. And his actions, through Lauren Smith, launched an investigation. Wait till I tell you what Bill Pulte did next. Oh, wait till I tell you what this guy did next. You want to talk about weaponization and illegality and unconstitutionality, covering your butt, CYA, on the grandest stage. I told you at the time when I talked about the irregular nature of these referrals, I mentioned that these referrals are supposed to come from the Office of the Inspector General, a man named Joe John Allen, and I couldn't believe his name wasn't being more prominently pushed in these storylines. Well, I'm going to prominently push it now. Coming right back.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
Okay. So how did this play out? So this Lauren Smith, the head of marketing at Fannie Mae, she went about trying to get these mortgage documents and anything, all the information on their loans illegally, unconstitutionally, unethically. And the Fannie Mae watchdogs barked, sent the Fannie Mae investigators on a quest to find out, one, is it legal for Bill Pulte, not Joe John Allen, to be sending these referrals? And two, did Lauren Smith break the law under Bill Pulte's direct order? Now, as far as the first thing goes, again, I said months ago, when the Comey indictment came down, this is so weird because it's the Inspector General, traditionally, in the FHFA, who brings the referrals to the DOJ. It is not the head of the FHFA's job to do this. And that Joe John Allen had been stepped over a number of times now. He has been made irrelevant, feckless, irrelevant by Bill Pulte. Neutered him. And I just couldn't believe that more wasn't being made of this. Joe John Allen, a respected FHFA official. He's been in in different parts of the administration for a while. Respected, professional, tenured, stepped over. And I was digging for what he had to say about it. And he just gave one little blurb months ago and said, any questions about the referrals to the DOJ, you got to talk to Bill Pulte because he's the one who sent them. That's all he would say. Well, here we go. Because these investigators, they found stuff. And they went to the Office of the Inspector General of the FHFA with their findings, Mr. Joe John Allen. And Joe John Allen took those findings and for the first time in months had a chance to do his job. And he sent a referral to the DOJ, specifically the Eastern District of Virginia, over Bill Pulte's handling of the information gathering on these mortgages and loans. That's right. He did his job. He sent a referral. What happened next? Everybody got fired. Everybody. Every investigator, the watchdogs, senior officials within Fannie Mae, fired. Only 2 people involved in this did not get fired. Miss Lauren Smith and Mr. Joe John Allen, because he quit. As soon as he saw the writing on the wall, he knew exactly where this was going to go. He said, you know what? I'm going to do my job for the very last time. And I'm going to send this referral to the DOJ. And then I quit. And Pulte fired everybody. As the head of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, he had the authority to do so, and he fired them all. Every single one of them. And what excuse did he give for firing them? You're going to love this. DEI. Yep. He claimed these were all unqualified people and DEI hires and were purging Fannie Mae of all of this DEI influence. Now, I mean, that is just too delicious. Now, you may be asking yourself, Brett, what happened to the investigation? Well, mum's the word. We haven't heard a word about any investigation by the Eastern District of Virginia or the DOJ on this referral from Joe John Allen, based on the investigations of the watchdogs at Fannie Mae and the investigative team at Fannie Mae. No reporting on what they found. DOJ has not commented. No case has been brought. No charges have been brought. Nobody's filed any indictment, seeking any indictment. Nothing. None of it. Nothing. Dead in the water. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be. That's really not the surprising part. It's really not the surprising part. You should be more shocked at how blatantly weaponized this guy is, firing everybody but Lauren Smith, his little spy, his little information gatherer. And by the way, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for Lauren Smith herself sending an email detailing some of her findings and the way she gathered those findings to some of her bosses. And then her bosses sent that email to other people high up in Fannie Mae. And they're like, hey, time to hire some lawyers. This could get messy. They're all fired. DEI, everybody but Lauren is fired. I mean, you can't make this crap up. You can't make it up. And so Bill Pulte, he may be in a little hot water over this. Maybe not. We'll see what happens. We'll see if this is absolutely dead in the water after these firings. I mean, again, Joe John referred this to the Eastern District of Virginia, Miss Halligan and Pam, Todd. That's who it would fall on to pursue Bill Pulte's methods of information gathering. And should he even be gathering them and referring things to the DOJ in the first place? That's who it would fall on to pursue this. But Pulte, he is doing this to himself. He's doing this to himself because this isn't the only mistake Pulte has made recently. This isn't the only one he's made recently. Bill Pulte, who is Trump's friend, Saturday went to President Donald Trump's Palm Beach Golf Club, and he wanted to talk to him about mortgages. He wanted to talk to him about mortgages. Now, this reporting, this is great reporting from Politico and Axios on this. He wanted to talk to Trump about mortgages, and he brought this cardboard or whatever, cut out presentation, because that's how you have to present things to Trump, in big, large, colorful pictures. That's the only way he ingests knowledge. We've seen this in action. It's the only way he understands things. Big, cartoonish, elementary presentations. And so Pulte, knowing President Trump like he does, brought one of those. He brought one of those. And it had a picture of President Franklin Roosevelt below 30-year mortgages, right? It said 30-year mortgages and it had a picture of President Roosevelt. And then it said 50-year mortgages and had a picture of Donald Trump. And below that, above that, it had a headline, Great American Presidents. That's it. That was the presentation. Two giant pictures, 30-year mortgage, 50-year mortgage, Great American Presidents. And it worked. Bill Pulte convinced Donald Trump of the merits of a 50-year mortgage. Oh, you got the picture there, Scotty? I love it. This is what it was. Nice and simple. So somebody with cognitive decline can easily ingest it. Thanks, Scott. Nice and simple. 10 minutes after Bill Pulte left Trump at that golf course, Trump posted the image to Truth Social. Immediately, just posted it. Immediately after Trump posted it, aides at the White House were fielding angry phone calls from everybody, high and low, who thought this was a terrible idea. A terrible idea. They called it bad politics, bad policy, and they said it was going to be an absolute chaos in the housing market in the long run. Housing market chaos. Chaos. One of the people that were at that meeting said he just sold POTUS a bill of goods that wasn't necessarily accurate. He said, FDR did it, you can do it. It's going to be a big thing. But he didn't tell him about the consequences. The person went on to say, anything that goes before the president, it has to be vetted. And with Pulte, it's never vetted. But because it's Bill, he gets to just go straight to the president with it. Nobody's there. There's no go-betweens, no buffers. Got a lot of buffers. There's no buffers between Pulte and the president. If Pulte wants to meet with the president with some bullcrap that nobody gets a chance to vet, he just gets to do that. And that's exactly what happened. Conservative influencers like Laura Loomer, Mike Cernovich, Christopher Russo, Sean Davis of The Federalist, and even Marjorie Taylor Greene blasted it on social media. Blasted it. One of the people close to the situation said, the thing that became clear from this latest episode, if it wasn't already clear, is that Bill Pulte doesn't know the first bleeping thing about how the mortgage markets operate. After publicly humiliating the president with his moronic 50-year mortgage plan, it's safe to assume that his days are numbered. Let's hear from a strategist. Let's hear from somebody who deals with these mortgages. Gennady Goldberg, who's the head of the U.S. rate strategy at TD Securities, said it would lead to buyers building equity in their homes much more slowly. At the beginning of the mortgage, more of those payments tended to be interest. This is more of a stopgap Band-Aid to address affordability. What does the White House say? Trump is committed to making it easier and more affordable to achieve the American dream of homeownership by eliminating unnecessary red tape, increasing supply, and lowering costs. The White House and the entire Trump administration are appreciative of Mr. Pulte's efforts, and everyone is working together to implement the president's policies. Let me tell you about what this 50-year mortgage is going to do. I got some numbers for you. Let's talk about the effects of what he's talking about. Okay. With a traditional mortgage loan, the homeowner steadily pays down a debt and builds equity, right? But the problem with these 50-year mortgages is that you would not build equity immediately. You'd just be making the interest payments for years. Now, let's take a $500,000 home loan, okay? $500,000 home loan. The current rate on a 30-year mortgage is 6.22%, okay? So for these calculations, to make it a 50-year mortgage, we're going to assume the rate of increase on the mortgage from 30 to 50 is the same as it is from 15 to 30, all right? So we're going to use that same rate of increase, which would make the interest rate 6.9% on the 50-year loan, 6.9%. Okay? That would mean for this $500,000 home, you would have a monthly payment of $2,985, which is only $83 less than the 30-year version. That's all you'd save per month. $83. Now here's the problem. After 5 years of this loan at the 30-year mortgage, the borrower would have paid off $33,000, about $33.5 of the loan balance. How much after 5 years would the borrower have paid off in the 50-year? Only $6,000. Only $6,000. After 3 decades, when the 30-year mortgage is fully paid off, the 50-year mortgage borrower would still owe $387,000. If you get a 30-year mortgage, you could expect to pay that thing off by the time you're ready for retirement age. With the 50-year mortgage, what? When you're 80, if all goes well? And what happens if you try to flip it, right? With a 30-year mortgage, after 5 or 6 or 7 years, you've built up a ton of equity. You can either take a second loan or sell the house and gain that equity, right? The house is raised in value and you've built equity through your payments. You can take that out. You can put it to a new house. You've got this equity built. With a 50-year, after 5, 6, 7 years, all you've done is paid interest. You still don't have any equity. You still don't have any equity. This is a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea. And everybody knows it. You know who knew it? White House officials. Everybody that works in the administration was absolutely furious with Bill Pulte. Furious. They're fielding the phone calls, trying to stiff arm all of these people that are calling them and just absolutely incensed over this, that the president would run with this. Everybody's incensed except President Trump. He thinks it's a great idea. He defended it with Laura Ingraham. He defends it every time he turns around now. Bill Pulte, you're going to get fired. Lindsay Halligan, you're going to get fired. These people are going to get fired. John Sarcone, we'll see what happens with your appointment. But if you don't make good on these subpoenas and these investigations into Letitia James' office, and if you don't defend the Maury Comey firing, you're going to get fired. These people are going to get fired.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett breaks. Things will be back Monday to break it all down.